Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
Jessica, wait, we can't. The kids are nearby. I protested weakly, but my body was already betraying me. Her touch became more intimate as she moved lower, expertly bringing me to the edge. Between the memories of last night and her alluring presence, I quickly reached my peak. After hastily cleaning up, Jessica wiped her lips, whispered, "Until next time," and slipped away. I'm Michael, 35, working at a local security company. My wife, Sarah, 33, is a warm and nurturing person who takes care of our 4-year-old daughter. We had settled into a peaceful life in suburban Illinois, but lately, our marriage had lost its spark. The daily routine had become monotonous, and we'd stopped feeling that excitement we once had. Everything changed when we met another family through our daughter's preschool. Brian, 36, worked as an IT consultant with frequent business trips, leaving his wife Jessica to manage their household and their son, who was in the same class as our daughter. Sarah often mentioned how lonely Jessica seemed. One perfect summer weekend, both families decided to have a picnic at Lake Shore Park, where the sound of children's laughter filled the air as we soaked in the natural beauty around us. Sarah surprisingly offered to drive that day, which meant I could kick back with a few beers. While our kids were having a blast at the playground, we adults spread out on our picnic blanket and got to talking. That's when I really noticed Jessica. Her long brown hair cascaded elegantly to one side, and she wore this flowing summer dress that perfectly highlighted her graceful figure. Her skin had this radiant glow in the sunlight, and her smile, there was something magical about it, both pure and subtly alluring. My heart would skip a beat whenever I looked at her. As she reclined against the folding chair, sipping her wine, I caught her stealing glances at me. When our eyes met, she'd give me this little smile and shift slightly, revealing her elegant collarbone and feminine curves. "Michael, you must work out a lot for your security job. You look so fit and capable," she said, making my pulse quicken. As time went on, our families grew closer. When Brian was away on business, I'd often take Jessica and her son to the park or have playdates with the kids. Sarah and Jessica became best friends, and I found myself naturally drawn into longer conversations with Jessica. But as we spent more time together, I started picking up on something special in the way Jessica looked at me and in her subtle gestures. Those long gazes from her deep brown eyes and meaningful smiles stirred up feelings of both excitement and guilt in me. During the 4th of July holiday, Sarah and our daughter planned to visit her parents in Chicago. I couldn't get time off work, so I was facing a few days alone. While part of me looked forward to some quiet time, I still felt a bit lonely. One evening after work, I stopped by the local wine shop for some wine and appetizers. When I got home, I was surprised to find Jessica waiting at my door, looking stunning in an elegant summer dress, quite different from her usual casual wear. "Hey Michael, I heard Sarah and your daughter left for Chicago," she asked. "Yeah. What brings you here?" Jessica flashed a smile and said, "I figured you might need someone to cook for you. My kids at their grandmother's, and I'm on my own too. Brian's in LA for work until the day after tomorrow." Without waiting for a response, she headed straight for my kitchen. I couldn't think of any reason to object, so I followed her lead. I couldn't help but notice how attractive she looked as she moved around the kitchen, her dress subtly highlighting her figure with each movement. "I brought some appetizers," she said, setting down wine and a cheese plate before sitting next to me. "Shall we make a toast?" As our glasses clinked, her eyes locked with mine intensely. There was no mistaking the emotion in that look. "You know, I've been wanting to spend some quiet time with you like this, Michael. Don't you feel like we just click?" My heart started racing at her words. As we talked, Jessica gradually moved closer to me. Every casual brush of her hand against my arm made it harder to think straight. Michael, I really care about you, she whispered, completely catching me off guard. When she gently touched my face and leaned in, my heart felt like it would explode. As our lips met in a kiss, all my hesitation disappeared. The kiss deepened, and Jessica, breathing heavily, moved onto my lap and began unzipping her dress. As her dress slipped away, I was drawn to Jessica's natural beauty in a way I hadn't anticipated. We began exploring our connection with tender touches on the sofa. A wave of guilt about Sarah and Brian flickered through my mind, but Jessica's enchanting presence and soft whispers made all rational thoughts dissolve into the background. My pulse was racing like a teenager experiencing his first romance, and the rush of emotions was simply overwhelming. These long-forgotten sensations had me completely spellbound. As Jessica pulled me closer, every point of contact between us sent electricity through my body. Our passionate encounter grew more intense with each passing moment, our breathing becoming heavier as we lost ourselves in the pure ecstasy of connection. Time seemed to stand perfectly still in that magical instant. The quiet of the living room was broken only by our breathing and the subtle movements of the furniture. After that evening, Jessica and I continued meeting in secret while maintaining our normal family routines. I convinced myself that preserving our everyday life was paramount, and ironically, I found myself appreciating family time even more deeply. However, as weeks passed, I began noticing subtle changes in Sarah and Brian's interactions. Everything came to light one evening at Murphy's Pub over afterwork drinks when Brian dropped a bombshell. Michael, I need to tell you something. Sarah and I have been seeing each other. Though initially stunned by Brian's confession, I felt an odd sense of relief, given my own situation. I opened up about Jessica, and Brian visibly relaxed. Hey, maybe we should talk this through properly? I suggested, thinking it might be healthier to acknowledge our feelings openly rather than dealing with the burden of secrecy. Brian pondered this for a moment before agreeing. That makes sense, but how do you think the girls will take it? While I was pretty confident about Jessica's open-minded nature, I was less sure about Sarah, who typically took a more traditional approach to relationships. Still, given her involvement with Brian, I figured she might be more receptive than I'd initially thought. Later that night, I found Sarah curled up on the couch watching Netflix. Deciding to gather my thoughts first, I took a quick shower. When I came out, she was at the kitchen table reviewing our monthly bills. Hey, can we talk for a minute? I asked carefully. Of course, what's up? She replied. Brian told me everything today. Sarah nearly jumped out of her chair. She stammered. It's okay, I assured her. Actually, Jessica and I. Sarah's expression shifted from panic to understanding as she sank back into her chair. I'm so sorry, we both said almost simultaneously. In the calm that followed, I brought up the idea of making our situation official, an open relationship. While Sarah was taken aback initially, she warmed to the idea surprisingly quickly. That weekend, we gathered at our place with the kids. Though we couldn't dive into details with the little ones around, everyone agreed to this new arrangement. Taking the initiative, I suggested a weekend getaway, which everyone enthusiastically supported. We found a beautiful secluded cabin in Vermont, where the crisp autumn air and vibrant fall foliage created the perfect backdrop. While the kids had a blast exploring the forest and visiting the local amusement park, we adults began adjusting to our new dynamic. As dusk settled in, we naturally gravitated toward our new partners. Watching Sarah walk hand in hand with Brian stirred up a complex mix of emotions, a twinge of jealousy alongside an unexpected thrill that reminded me of my college dating days. Our secret meetings were now replaced with the thrill of open interaction, making me feel like I was experiencing first date butterflies all over again. Jessica was particularly vibrant that day, wearing a white blouse with a few buttons undone that accentuated her natural beauty. There was something captivating about watching her care for the children, and the glimpse of her top underneath her blouse added an elegant touch. That evening, we gathered for a classic backyard barbecue. Despite the full day at the amusement park, the kids were still racing around the garden, and I found myself joining in their games. Usually, I'd have begged off, claiming exhaustion, but Jessica's presence gave me an unexpected burst of youthful energy. As dusk settled in and bath time approached, the women tidied up the kitchen while we men took charge of helping the kids with their bath. Brian and I shared a quiet moment in the bathroom. "Here's hoping the kids crash early," I whispered, mindful of little ears. "Yeah, I'm getting butterflies," Brian admitted. "Wonder if the girls are as antsy as we are?" We exchanged knowing smiles, feeling like college kids before a big date. Meanwhile, Sarah and Jessica were having their own private conversation in the kitchen. "How are you finding the trip, Jessica?" "It's wonderful, Sarah, though I have to admit, I'm a bit nervous." "You?" Jessica gave Sarah's hand a reassuring squeeze. "Sarah, what we have here, our friendship, it's solid. Not everyone will get it, but what matters is that we're happy." Sarah's smile showed visible relief. After we finished with the kids' baths, the women took their turns. I managed to get the children settled in bed, and they drifted off surprisingly quickly. While Brian and I were catching up in the living room, the women joined us, fresh from their baths. We opened a bottle of wine and shared quiet conversation over snacks, careful not to wake the kids. Sarah gravitated toward Brian, while Jessica settled next to me. As the wine worked its magic, Jessica's cheeks took on a rosy glow, and she naturally nestled against me. Jessica made the first move, subtly resting her leg against mine. Sarah seemed taken aback by Jessica's boldness, but appeared intrigued by the situation. As Jessica's touches grew more daring, moving higher up my thigh, we found ourselves drawn into a kiss. Captivated by her sensual presence, I pulled her closer, deepening our embrace. Across from us, Sarah and Brian's eyes met in a moment of shared understanding before they too shared a tender kiss. The intimate atmosphere between both couples grew more intense, and Jessica began slowly undressing. Our mutual attraction heightened as we watched each other, and despite our earlier exhaustion, we lost ourselves in intense pleasure. Catching Sarah's sultry glances only intensified the experience, adding an extra layer of excitement to our intimate encounter. Our unique dynamic continued to evolve and deepen. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the kids and made my way to the living room. Sarah and Brian were in the kitchen working well together preparing breakfast. While I'd previously felt pangs of jealousy about Sarah, now I found myself more curious about their connection. "Morning, Michael. Sleep well?" Jessica's warm greeting came with that radiant smile of hers. "Oh, yeah, about last night." I trailed off, suddenly feeling like a shy teenager. Jessica blushed too, and we shared a moment of sweet awkwardness. Later, while we were packing, Jessica snuck up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "Last night was incredible, wasn't it?" she whispered, sending shivers down my spine. She looked up at me with those captivating eyes. As she leaned in closer, I caught a glimpse of her curves through her blouse, making my breath catch. Jessica noticed my reaction and gave me a seductive smile before kissing me softly. "Jessica, wait, we can't. The kids are nearby." I protested weakly, but my body was already betraying me. Her touch became more intimate as she moved lower, expertly bringing me to the edge. Between the memories of last night and her alluring presence, I quickly reached my peak. After hastily cleaning up, Jessica wiped her lips, whispered, "Until next time," and slipped away. I found myself completely drawn to her, and surprisingly, any feelings of guilt were overshadowed by the thrill of our connection. After straightening myself up, I returned to the living room, anxious that someone might have noticed something amiss. But everyone was just going about their packing as usual. Back in our regular routines, we maintained our every other week meetups and family vacations during school breaks. This unconventional setup seemed to breathe new life into both marriages. The excitement with Jessica was electric, while our primary relationships gained fresh energy. While this kind of arrangement might raise eyebrows in most social circles, it works for us. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if Sarah's feelings for Brian might grow stronger than ours, but I've come to realize that these unique experiences have actually strengthened our marriage in unexpected ways. Moving forward, I'm committed to nurturing this delicate balance we've created.